I don't know who's doing it. I got an idea though. I think it's Junior Roseman who's trying to shut us down, but you can't. We are 7 days away from the Eagles showing up to training camp. But as always, truth, justice, and the Big Sills way here on the National Football Show. We started off with Big Sills. And how you doing? By the way, I have to give myself a lot of kudos yesterday, even though the show went through some technical difficulties. I actually like that for a name of a show. Technical difficulties. I actually may rename the show Big Sills, the Technical Difficulty Show. I don't know. There's got a ring to it. I like it. Okay? Or Mr. Antagonizer. Something like that. That has like a nice ring to it. The king, no longer the king of content, but the king of antagonizing. And kind of getting under your skin a bit. As I pontificate here. By the way, we did have some stupid internet issues. We apologize. And hopefully, by the way, we got a brand new modem all set up here. So still got some technicians coming out to double check here because we do not want to shut the bad puppy down. And we appreciate you hanging tough with us yesterday. Thank you. Dave Wannstedt, the 3-time Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator with the Dallas Cowboys back in the Jimmy Johnson days, former head coach of the Miami Dolphins and Chicago Bears, and also worked with Vic Fangio, will be with us at 4:30. Xander, as always, will be with us at 3:30. We're going to start ramping up the guests again. You know, everyone's kind of on a hiatus when it gets to this time of the year, right before training camp. Now everybody's kind of on vacation. Now everybody's getting ready to get back to work. So Boomer Esiason, Phil Simms, all the guys that you come to love, Tony Dungy, all those guys will be back, rearing to go and ready to jump on the program. Brian Baldinger as well, as we get ready for training camp. All these guys will start ramping up and getting back on the program. So we look forward to having you guys here with us. We thank you again. So 4:30, the 3-time Super Bowl defensive coordinator, Dave Wannstedt. If there's a guy that knows Vic Fangio, it's Coach. So we will get him on again for you. And we'll ask him some questions about what to expect this coming season with Vic's defense. You know, is this going to come down to what are we going to look at schematically on how they're going to get pressure? And we'll get his thoughts. So, yo, Big Sills, what do you think about Skip Bayless getting fired? That boy lived off of 3 topics. Bruce, absolutely. And I'm hearing, I just told Xander, I think Nick Wright's getting the job to replace him. You know, hey, he had a good run, whether you liked him or not. I never looked at shit like that. Bayless lasted a long time. Good for him. Made a ton of money. Was one of the guys on television that took what I did from the radio airwaves and put it on TV. Personally, in my opinion, the greatest talk show, sports-wise, that was on television, that is still on television, is PTI. I think Kornheiser is the best. I think Bayless is good. Tony Kornheiser is absolutely the greatest. He could do radio, television, and I like PTI. PTI was my favorite and still is. When you want a really good show with humor, getting to the topics, guys having original opinions, PTI, which they don't promote as much, they promote First Take a lot more, but PTI is a great show with Wilbon and with Kornheiser. That thing, the reason that thing still does well today is because those guys are very talented guys. If I'm not mistaken, I think Wilbon was a DC writer, and so was Tony Kornheiser. They were both in DC, I think, at the Washington. I'm trying to think, were they at the Washington Times or were they at the Wall Street Journal? I can't remember what they were. I think the Washington Post that those two guys were at. So, yeah, just, you know, hey, whatever you think of Bayless, I don't really get into whether, because I don't know Skip. So I don't really have an opinion on what he's like, whether he's a dick or not. I don't care. I just know this. He lasted a long time. He did a job. He drove that show into the toilet off of 3 topics: ripping LeBron, ripping Aaron Rodgers, and kissing the Cowboys' ass. People got tired of it. And when he blew up and threw off Shannon Sharp, he thought he didn't need him. He thought the show was about him, like Stephen A. Smith with First Take. Well, actually, Stephen A. Smith is better on TV than he is on radio. He's horrible on radio, but he's good on TV. So he's made a niche for himself on TV with that First Take show. And it's actually doing very well since they brought Shannon Sharp over. Shannon wins the argument now. Skip's been canceled. He thought it was all him. Well, when Shannon left, it only took that show, not even a year before it ended up getting canceled. So just remember, things you're doing with the people that you're doing, it ain't about you. I can't do this show without Xander. I can't do this show without Joe. I used to think that back in the day. You have to have a team to put a show on. You have to have the tree and you have to have the people. And the people behind the scenes are more important sometimes than the actual guy in front of the mic or in front of the camera. And if you don't know that, you're not going to go far. It's not about you. It's about how it's presented to people, where it lands. Sports talk is not as easy as you think. I'm watching Xander on Birds 365 as he's going through the process of learning how to be a sports talk host. I'm still learning. There's nothing wrong with that. Jalen Hurts is still learning to be a quarterback in this league. And Xander's doing a great job of it, man. Formulating topics, taking topics and cutting them in half, rewriting topics. That's how you do it, man. You create your own content. You don't stick on the same content. Now, again, what makes the Eagle content so good is because there is a polarizing figure on your football team. There's actually 2. Let's do this for a second. Not to bore you with how you orchestrate or you building block a show. The 2 polarizing people on the Eagles, there's actually 3 of them: Howie, Nick, and Jalen. The rest of them are sub-content. You build your show around those 3 men because those are the 3 men that are the focal points for this 2024 year. Jalen Carter being good, Jordan Davis, those are subtopics. Okay? AJ Brown kind of could sneak up in there, especially when he opens his mouth. Okay? But there's 3 guys that are going to move the needle this year when it comes to the Eagles: the GM, the head coach, and the quarterback. There's no way around it. Sitting around talking about the 3rd wide receiver as an opening segment in my show will never happen. That's not going to happen. It's called getting to the red meat right away. Did you see the interview with the Raiders head coach? I want a coach like that. I like that coach. Former player himself. Okay? Xander's great at his job. He doesn't push an agenda. He does his research, unlike other people. Hey, Prince, once again, Prince, you're not and haven't been drafted to come here every day. You know, it's funny. What I love about Prince, and I do love Prince, you know what he says? He comes here to take shots at us every day, but he's here every day. So it's a win for Big Sills. You know, you could just do Birds 365, or you can watch the other guy that comes on before Xander. You don't have to be here. You're not obligated. You come here because you want to be here. And I want you here. I like Prince. I do. Okay? And by the way, Prince, I've been doing it for 35 years. I kind of know what we're doing. And I'm not throwing shots at you. Sills, I'm here for JAKIB and Eagle content. Okay. You know what, Prince? I'll accept that. Thank you very much for being here for JAKIB and for Eagle content. And I thank you. Okay? No problem. And I'll accept that, and I agree with you. And if that's why you're here every single day for 4 hours, then fine. I love it. And thank you, and we all thank you. And I mean that. I'm not being facetious. Okay? I'm here for the guest. Okay. You're here for the guest. Sure. Okay. We go if you want. Dude, you can come, and I don't have nobody's obligated to do anything. Ayuk wanted to be traded and is demanded a trade by the San Francisco 49ers, and he's requested it to them. I don't know what they'll end up doing. Okay. I really don't. But I could see the Los Angeles Chargers making a play. I could also see the Washington Commanders making a play. Absolutely. We are 7 days away, as I said, from Eagle training camp. And rookies are reporting, as we said yesterday, to these facilities. Ravens are already in camp. Bears, Bills, Chiefs, Chargers, Giants, 49ers, Saints. I mean, you have free agents, newly acquired players, and rookies starting to report all week long at these facilities. Hey, Joho, how you been, brother? Thanks for coming back. I really appreciate it. Okay? Dan is great with guests, but not so much as when he's alone. Really. That's why I could do a show on my head for 4 hours without taking a break if I didn't have to. And I still pull great numbers. We appreciate you all on all of our platforms too. Whatever, dude. You know, I used to always hear that. Hey, Sills, man, you're doing 14 shares by yourself in the mornings at DAE. By yourself? Yeah. Because I'm not having someone drive me like Nick Sirianni. I would never allow anybody to have my career in the hands of somebody like Nick. Can you imagine what Nick's doing? That's anti-Sills. Hey, Kellen, hope you have a good year, because if you do, you save my job. What kind of guy is that? Dude, if I'm going to blow my show up, I'm blowing it up. I'm not having someone else do it for me. What kind of guy would allow somebody else to put his career in their hands? No, thank you. I want to be the master of my own demise or my own successes. Okay? Daniel, Sills, I got to say, is Big Sills, happy Football Tuesday, brother. 7 days to camp? Yes, sir. Yes, sir, baby. 7 days to camp. All right. I want to get into the topics. First and foremost, I saw a poll over on WIP. And we're gonna crescendo up to the topic here. You think the criticism of Jalen Hurts is fair? You think it's fair coming off of 23 heading into the 24 season? There is a lot of people right now that have backed up a ton on how they look at Jalen Hurts. A ton on how they look at him. And I got an opinion on this, and I'm going to make finally my statement why how I look at him and how I look at quarterbacks like him, and why I'm sitting where I'm at now compared to where I was in 22 with him. Mike says no. Joseph says yes. DFW, yes. Anytime you sign a $55 million contract, DFW, I believe that too. Hey, DFW, Jalen Hurts deserves the same kind of heat Dak Prescott gets. Okay? He deserves the same kind of heat that Dak gets. I would tend to think Dak more because Dak's been in the league more. And Dak has been a starter more. JM says Hurts doesn't get enough heat. We don't get 11 wins last season with Carson Wentz. Yes, you do. Carson Wentz never had that talent. Yes, you do. Wentz wins 11 games with that talent. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Hurts was rolling in 22. In the entire offseason, the Philly media was speculating whether he could be more conventional of a quarterback to keep getting injured on the run. 23 said no, he can't do it, says Slager. It's a great take, Slager. It's a great take. The fumble in the Super Bowl proved everything I need to know in the Super Bowl. Hey, Chips and Birds, that's funny you should say that because I'm going to go on to a take here about how I think people are looking at him and why people look at him the way he does and the style of play he has. Hurts is being pampered. I don't know pampered. I think protected a little by the fan base because hey, by the way, I don't think there's anything wrong with the Eagle fans wanting him to have success. There's nothing wrong with rooting for him. You see, you're more in the rooting for him mode now to have a good bounce back season. And again, not that he was awful last year, but that's not a $55 million quarterback. And that's what you all are looking at. Hey, listen, he didn't play bad last year, but that's not what I paid for. And you're right. Two things can be right here. You want it to be better. There's nothing wrong with that. And you're rooting for it. And you're rooting for it. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay? There's nothing. Yeah, but Braun says, hey, the fans are. No. It's okay, though, to want to root for one of your guys. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Okay? But you got to be realistic in what you're looking at. Okay? You just force. See, I'm not debating the fact Carson Wentz never in a billion years, and no quarterback in Philadelphia Eagle history has ever had the talent Hurts has had. Nobody. It's the richest offensive huddle in NFL history. Nobody has ever had more money spent, and more money due, actually, as we pointed out, with the cap hits that are coming, than the Eagles. This is the richest offense in NFL history. Okay? Here's a great take by Prince. Jalen must prove the naysayers wrong. Okay? He must prove the naysayers wrong by controlling what he can, such as turnovers. But there are definitely mixed opinions about him. Correct. And I'm going to give you an opinion, and you tell me if you subscribe to this. How do you all let that guy make a racial remark in the chat if I said I don't like black folks? Y'all would block me. Who said that? Sill's got the best football content. Thank you, Spin. I appreciate that. If you pay Jalen on how he played in 22, then let him play that stuff. That's DFW. That's totally my take. Hurts is not a generational talent. Philly, this is where I'll side on Jalen's side. Do you think that Jared Goff is a generational talent? Do you? Do you think that Jared Goff, he just got a $53 million contract? Do you think he's a generational talent? I don't. I don't think he's a generational talent. But he just signed for $53 million. Right? Like, do you think Kyler Murray's a generational talent? He just signed for $46 million. So when you say that, I don't think Jalen is a generational talent. When you pay somebody that money, well, don't get it confused. Just because you got paid that money doesn't mean you're great. Or doesn't mean you're a generational talent or a franchise quarterback. These salaries have skewed that opinion. Just because you get paid the most money doesn't make you the best quarterback in the league. Nobody would ever say Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence are the two best quarterbacks in pro football when you got a guy in Kansas City, what he's doing. Correct? The money is confusing people. The money has nothing to do with your skill set. It has zero to do with it. actually. Just because you make more money than that one respected player. Like, get this. Wouldn't you take CJ Stroud over Kyler Murray? And he's on a rookie contract. Does that mean that Kyler Murray is a better ball player than CJ Stroud or Jordan Love because he makes more money? That doesn't mean that. Because Jalen Hurts makes a ton of money, that doesn't make him better than Dak or anyone else. It just doesn't. You're being confused by the salaries and how you look at people. Okay? Appreciate everybody. Please hit the like button, by the way. We always try to get to 200 likes each and every single day. So please hit that like button. We thank you. I'm going to make a comment to you. And I want you to get and have an understanding. I went back and looked at the last 20 years. And I'm going to show you why people look at Hurts the way they do. In the last 20 years, here's been the criteria for Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. 30 touchdowns, about 147 yards rushing, 1 rushing TD. That's the criteria on how quarterbacks who win Super Bowls look. And that's been consistent for the last 20 years. The guys who are 3,500, 800 rushing, 20 touchdowns passing, 15 rushing, those are great. He's a wonderful talent, but that's not Super Bowl criteria. And you're not going to get a consistent season, and you're not going to be in a consistent place to be a Super Bowl contender when you don't have the criteria that the quarterback looks like when he wins these games. At the end of the day, Jalen Hurts doesn't look like a Super Bowl contending quarterback. He doesn't. And that's the problem that people have with it. Nobody wins Super Bowls like Lamar and Jalen. Nobody. They all look to be the guys that had limited rushing yards, limited touchdowns rushing, 35 touchdowns passing, 30 TDs. That's what a Super Bowl contender looks like every year. They don't look like Hurts. Now, I'm not saying that Jalen's not a good player. That's not what this is. I'm just saying that ain't winning these Super Bowls because that's not what a Super Bowl winning quarterback looks like. And until somebody changes that dynamic, okay? McNair never won a Super Bowl. That's not true. McNair didn't win a Super Bowl. Almost. Doesn't count. Only in horseshoes. Colin Kaepernick almost. Russell Wilson is not Jalen Hurts. He's a better passer. When you look at the standard quarterbacks, and until somebody wins it, okay? But by the way, Russell Wilson leaned on Marshawn Lynch. When they took Marshawn Lynch off that football team, Russell Wilson was lost. That was Lynch's team. When they took Marshawn Lynch off the football team, Russell Wilson never again even looked remotely close to it. Now, again, that's not what in the last 15 years the quarterback position looks like. And remember, I said in the last 15 years, 20 years you want, 30 TDs, about 150 yards rushing, 1 TD rushing. That's the criteria. That fits Josh Allen too. We'll talk more about him here in a second. Do you understand what I'm saying? You can't be consistent playing Jalen Hurts' style. And the Eagles know that. That's why they're coaching him different. You get that? I've now figured out why. Because they know that 22 style is not going to win a Super Bowl. The only way they're going to win a Super Bowl with him is a better, improved 23. And that's why they've changed him. or they're trying to coach him differently. Because you know why? Their actions are speaking to what they're doing and how they're trying to develop into a pocket passer. And Prince is right. The Eagle organization is skipping steps. We should have a coaching system that develops the players. He is dead nails right. They're skipping steps. They're inflating the expectations. And you know how they're inflating the expectations? By signing the players around him, because that roster is too good to waste on a project quarterback. When Jalen Hurts was drafted, he was a project. By the way, is that project moving in the right direction? I'll tell you this, even with 23's walk back, he's still advancing. Look, the last 2 years, if you told me Jalen Hurts, 22 and 23, coming out of college at Oklahoma, he would look the way he does, and he would put up the numbers he's putting up, I would tell you you're crazy. He's absolutely overachieving. But is that good enough? And is that style? This is clearly why they have decided to change and coach him as a drop back pocket passer. Because they know the criteria to win a Super Bowl isn't the 22 criteria. It's the only explanation while you're doing this, why you're taking the RPOs away, why you went out and signed a free agent running back like Barkley, is because you're trying to get away from 22 because you know that style. He's not going to consistently keep you in the picture to win a Super Bowl. The last 15 years show you that. That guy looks like 30 touchdowns, 150 yards rushing, 1 touchdown rushing. That's how those quarterbacks look. The Eagles are trying to coach that criteria. It makes sense. It totally makes sense. Now, will he develop into that? You got to give him time. You know what they do every time, though, the Eagles? They slow his growth when you change coordinators, change terminology, change systems. It's got to be one of the most frustrating things for a kid who wants to develop into being a pocket passer to have to go back to the drawing board every year. Whether it's terminology, certain new plays being added, why can't he ever have the same offense? You had the 8th ranked offense last year. You think Kellen Moore's going to have Kellen Moore, in your opinion, is going to have a better offense than ranked 8th. Okay. He's going to score more than 26 points and be ranked 8th. That's a pretty good season. That's a pretty good year. That's a lot of pressure being added. Number 2, at least. They've never been that high, even with Steichen. Sills, this team has Hurts on the first step forward and 2 steps backward program. RPO forward, drop back and read. Hey, I'm going to get here to it. Greg Cosell, and I can't play the sound clip, says Hurts can't read defenses. He can't read defenses. This is Greg Cosell from the NFL Films, who breaks this shit down all the time, says that he can't read defenses. He struggles with it. I know some of you don't want to hear that, but he can't. That's not from me. Dude's still learning. Ask a quarterback. His 4th season as a starter. I know. Bro, hey, Bernard, I think he's actually moving forward. If Hurts happens to take the team to the Super Bowl this year, that would be remarkably cool. Exactly, Sills. If fans were willing to deal with a fight tooth and nail and be patient for that dickhead Carson Wentz, they could do the same for Jalen. Absolutely. Find out if he can become. Right now, Greg Cosell says he can't read defenses. So a quarterback can't develop. Who said that? He said right now he can't read defenses. Nobody said he can't. I'm saying you think this guy's a top 5 quarterback now? He ain't. He ain't. He is a top 5 talent. He's a top 10 talent. Is he a top 10 quarterback? Fuck no. Sills, what's the difference? Rodgers and Brady. I go back to that all the time. Rodgers is by far a better talent. Brady's the better quarterback. Dude, Brady and Peyton Manning can't jump over a stack of quarters. Have you ever seen Tom Brady squatting? Have you ever seen Tom Brady in the weight room? The only videos you've ever seen of Brady are on a football field or what? In front of Belichick playing war games. He's not in the weight room. You know why? Dude, being in the weight room, you don't get pats on the back for that. This is pro football. You want me to thank you for doing your gig? Like I told you before, and I use the analogy. It's like thank you somebody for not robbing a bank. You're in the NFL. You're going to lift weights. You're going to be in shape. I'm not going to give you kudos for doing your job on getting yourself in shape and getting your body ready for the 24th season. You don't get back slaps for that. You get back slaps for getting better reading defenses and preparing the players around you. That's when you get back slaps. That's when you get those back slaps. Jalen's a hard worker. So what? So is every other successful quarterback. Tell me something different that separates him. Jalen works harder than who? Burrow? I don't believe that. I believe they work the same. I believe they work the same. Works harder than Josh Allen? I don't believe that. I think they all work the same. Okay? Hurts doesn't work where it matters. He was crying about learning an offense like a kid does. And he's told to mow the lawn, and he's upset with it. That's what JM's referring to. Okay? Jalen Hurts did more 4 seasons overrated quarterback than Justin Herbert. Nobody on the planet would ever say Jalen Hurts is a better passer and a better quarterback prospect than Justin Herbert. Nobody. No, nobody. Again, there goes the criteria. If you put Justin Herbert on the open market or Jalen Hurts, you'd have 30 teams wanting to go after Justin Herbert. Jalen Hurts doesn't fit every style of play for every team. Herbert, you can win from the pocket. I mean, once again, you don't get paid on wins. You get paid on how you conduct yourself in the pocket. And he's been, in my opinion, I think only Mahomes has more yards than him in his first 3 years than any quarterback in the league. History. Again, I want to go back to one thing I said here. I'm not saying that Jalen's not talented. But the criteria of a Super Bowl quarterback, he doesn't fit it. Are you going to have a year where you look sensational? Here, let's do this. 2-time MVP in Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson is built for the regular season, and his fundamental flaws come out in the postseason. You know why? He's not built to win. He's not built to win those games. Because you have to win from the pocket in the postseason to win a Super Bowl. Last 15 years, 30 TDs, 150 yards rushing. Those are the guys that win. The dual threat guys are going to be like the Kaepernicks, the Hurtses, Lamar. Very talented people. They're going to get you to the game. They can get you to the game. One of those guys is going to have to push through. Okay? One of those guys is going to have to. Love my birds, but Jalen got to show he's elite. This season, he's got to show he's worth the money, or it be a la Wentz. Still think we paid him too soon. I do too. Off of one season. That's not enough. And that's why he gets the criticism that he gets, because he's only had one season. And the only thing you now do is refer back to that 22 season because you saw something. But the problem, again, goes back to what Greg Cosell said and what a lot of folks are saying. They're not playing him that way any longer. They're trying to change him into being the criteria of today's Super Bowl type quarterbacks. Win from the pocket. Hey, when they asked him to do that, he couldn't see the blitzes. He got hit more, and he got hit more in the pocket as a drop back quarterback. He held the ball too long. Here's the fundamental things that he get. And by the way, are these young player issues? Holding on to the ball too long. Isn't that Carson Wentz too? He did. Not seeing the blitz. Isn't that Carson Wentz? How come everything Jalen Hurts is struggling with, Wentz struggled with at the end? After Los Angeles, and Wentz got hurt, and after really Seattle as well, they stopped running him, right? I thought he was kind of like a pseudo Brett Favre at one time when I first saw him playing earlier in his career. And when the Eagles decided that they didn't want him out in the perimeter like that and wanted him to be more of a pocket, he is struggling from the same characteristics that Jalen Hurts is now struggling with. Blitzes and holding the ball too long. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Sills, Hurts' work ethic should be embraced by putting a scheme together that fits his athletic ability. A la Shane Steichen. This team can succeed until Hurts' quarterback skills improve. You know what's crazy, Bob? The 22 season, I thought Hurts was getting better as a passer by the end of the year. I did. I thought he was getting better until he got hurt in that Chicago game. I thought he was actually getting better. And then they decided this past season to do business decisions. Get down, slide. Less situational RPOs. Less read options. More in the pocket. He struggles from the same thing Wentz struggled from at the end of his career in Philly. Is it hard knowing Hurts will prove you wrong? That's not part of my conversation right now. Agreed. His confidence was better. Bob, you know why? Because he had a comfort zone in what he was doing when he was running. Remember how many times, Bob, that I say, look, you know what's crazy? The conversation that I'm having here on July 16th, 2024, compared to the conversation we were having in season during the 22 year is night and day. You know why? Because the player has completely changed. Isn't it funny? It's not flip-flopping. Jalen Hurts is not the player he was in 22 right now. Can he get back to that? We're waiting and seeing if that's going to be a possibility. But now there's still doubt. And that's what everyone around, including executives and coaches and general managers and scouts. Let me read you something. An evaluation of Jalen Hurts. Let me read you this. Let me go down to this. And somebody sent me this. An evaluation of Jalen Hurts. Here's Jalen Hurts' valuation. All-pro votes. Jalen is elite, no question. Yeah, Gardner Minshew and him had a great Pro Bowl last year. After a 3-year term that guaranteed a Super Bowl appearance and a $255 million contract, Hurts' play dipped in 23. His quarterback ranking fell from 4th to 12th. His 15 interceptions were so uncharacteristic that the total nearly matched that of his entire 3-year combination of 18. A knee injury, okay, they're using knee injury, that he tried his best to manage clearly affected him, according to several evaluators. He was playing hurt, an NFC executive said. The Eagles tried to downplay that, but he didn't look right. He wasn't the same runner. He was in the past, and passing the ball was tough for him this past season. One AFC scout said. He always will be in that 7 to 12 range, depending on how productive he is each year. Also note, the Eagle offense became stale as a whole, according to high-ranking NFL team officials, and the predictability offensive attack also affected Hurts' stock. This is an evaluation from NFL evaluators. I got this from a dear friend of mine who's an NFL general manager. That's how they look at him. 7 and 12, and he wasn't the same last year because they're coaching him differently, and they're trying to put him in the characteristic of what these quarterbacks look like that win these Super Bowls. Okay? Well, they just justified it, Sills. Backtrack what? Backtrack what? What are you talking about? Sills, the team moved away from a gradual transition from the RPO to a pass-heavy system. They did. It was a night and day offensive maneuver. They scrapped the RPO and forced a pass-heavy scheme on him. Typical plug-and-play mentality. That's a typical front office mentality. Okay? Okay, Martin, once again, that was never documented. It's a belief he was injured. It was never documented. He was never on injured reserve. But once again, okay, it validates that he was hurt. If you want to go there, Martin, that's why the Eagles are taking the RPO away and trying to make him into a pocket passer, which he'll never be, because Greg Cosell says it. He can't read defenses to this point. You're going to get a 23 season the same way you did a year ago. Nothing will change. What's going to change? Kellen Moore's play calling? This comes down to the player. Will there be better routes? Better disguise routes? Possibly. But this is going to, and get this, your defense is not going to help him. You can't have 3 and outs because your defense is worse than even a year ago now. It's worse than a year ago. Some will go, wait, we got more. No, you don't. Prospects, potential. We don't know yet. Might be. But there's no sure thing. There's not one sure thing on that side of the ball except Jalen Carter. Not one sure thing. Projections, prospects, potential. Worst words you can have going into a regular season. Cosell also said that Jalen did poorly in 23. He did well in 22. 2 different styles of play. Forte. That's my point. Thank you for accentuating the point. Correct. Fundamentally, the Eagles are changing him because they know that style of play will not put him in a Super Bowl again. Colin Kaepernick and all these other guys, they totally get there. There's no doubt. But you're not going to consistently be in that room playing that style of play that he did in 22. And actually, I think that style of play in 22, how many people believe that Lamar Jackson's going to win a Super Bowl? Let's go there with that. It's not sure it will be a mess either. No, not at all. How many people think that Lamar Jackson's going to win a Super Bowl? Actually, Hurts doesn't come close to Purdy. Check the stats. Hey, Niner, correct. He does a great job spreading the ball around. Okay? He does a great job. How many people believe Lamar Jackson's going to win a Super Bowl? I don't think so. I don't think he's set up to win in the postseason. I don't think he has the skill set to win in the postseason. I just don't. Because he's not going to go back and forth with Burrow and Mahomes and beat him in an AFC title game. No way. And you know how you beat the Ravens? Get a lead on them. Make him throw the ball. I would make Lamar Jackson. You know how I would defend Lamar? Make him throw the ball 37 times. Same way the Chiefs did. Spagnuolo knew. Mahomes gets up on him, and once they got up on him, that AFC title game was over. Because he's a one-dimensional ball player. He's not going to win from the pocket. Now, if he gets a lead on you, it's over. It's over. And he's so dominant, there's very few guys in the league that can throw themselves out of trouble. Hurts can't throw the Eagles out of trouble. There's a lot of guys who can't. Burrow, Mahomes. Those guys can throw their teams out of trouble. How many times have we seen Patrick Mahomes behind 20 points come back and win? JM says Baltimore's defense took a step back. They lose the secondary coach. They lost the coordinator. They lost Patrick Queen. Lost a couple dudes on that side of the ball. It's going to be interesting to see if they can recover. That's a flawed assessment of the Eagles organization. If they had watched 22 season, they would have seen that we were more balanced. Their balanced performance led to 2 Super Bowl appearances. Dude, don't ever confuse Jalen Hurts for being a passer like Nick Foles, because he's not. But balance was there, to your point. Yeah, no, they weren't balanced last year, especially down the stretch. And they've changed the quarterback. As a matter of fact, Greg Cosell, that's his opinion. Their offense didn't help them. The 23 offense, they took the RPOs away. They took the read options away, tried to make him a pocket passer, and he can't read defenses. That's his assessment. I've been telling you that for 3 years. It's not a rip. You're just pushing the cart before the horse here. Hey, early on in Brady's career, you know how Brady won? But here's the difference with the way Brady was coached early in his career. Everything was underneath. They weren't these so-called fucking stupid explosion plays that the Eagles want. You're making a quarterback who was a project coming out of college try to have explosion plays when even a guy who won 7 Super Bowls, I'll say 6 because 7 he started throwing some of it downfield until they changed it up. But at the end of the day, let's be fair here. Brady was a check down guy his entire career, and that's how they coached him. There were no explosion plays in New England. It was tight end centric, and it was all screens. A couple slants across the middle. They won Super Bowls with Deion Branch, Danny Amendola, Wes Welker, and Julian Edelman. They weren't winning them with high-flying guys. They were winning them with cross routes, screen passes, flare passes to the backs, and passes to the tight ends. And the one thing the Eagles, just like New England, have always had, they've always had exceptional tight ends in New England. The bread and butter of Brady's entire passing career is through the tight end position. Ben Coates, Aaron Hernandez, and of course Gronkowski. That's how they won. They weren't winning with explosion plays for a limited passer. It blows your mind when you hear other people now have come to the realization he doesn't fit the criteria of what you're looking for, and he can't read defenses. These are other people saying this. These are professional NFL scouts and GMs and evaluators going, the league has caught up with what he is and what his strengths and weaknesses are. He's got to evolve into something. And the Eagles want to evolve him into a pocket passer. He's never been that in his career. You want to give him time? That's one thing. But to sit there and start calling, hey, Kyler Murray, is he in the room with Jalen? No. Do I think that Jalen Hurts in 5 years or 4 years from now will be superior? Yes. But the problem with Hurts has in Philly, your constant revolving door of coaches. Okay? And he'll never get the consistency of having the same game plan. Mahomes has had the same game plan. Hey, let me ask you this. Bob, tell me this. You think Patrick Mahomes is benefiting from having the same game plan the last 6 years? And the same coordinator and the same voice? As talented as he is, as super talented as he is, do you think that Mahomes is benefiting? Since 2018, Patrick Mahomes has had the same guy in his ear, the same system, the same terminology. You think that's benefiting him growing into being the quarterback he is right now? Do you think that helps him? Yes, he's gifted. Yes, he's talented. How talented would he be if he was in Philly and he had coaches being changed in every single year, new coordinators, new schemes, well, they don't really do the personnel in Philly like that. That's a cool thing. And they do a good job at building the team around him. You know what? They don't do a good job of Jalen around him. They don't build continuity in the coaching staff around him. They do a horrible job of that. Seals, do you like Anthony Richardson even though he was a dual threat quarterback? I like him, Anthony, more now with Shane Steichen. I'm going to be very interested in to see what Shane does. Do I think Anthony Richardson lasts a long time in this league? He's probably got a 7 or 8 year career, 9-year career playing that style of football. Think of this, senor. He couldn't even get through his first year without getting hurt with that style of play. What makes you think he's going to last 10 years plus? Look at Jay Brown saying that it's 55 minutes of hate. What hate? I'm saying he can get better. I'm saying the Eagles are coaching him correct, not coaching him right. I never said he sucked. I never said he was bad. I'm telling you what others are saying. And you don't like it. Hey, Jay Brown, that's too bad what others are now coming to the realization of what your quarterback is. You don't like it. Well, that's who he is. He said it. He can't read defenses, but you want him to. Okay. Can you get better at that? Yes. It took Brady 25 years to be the savant that he was. You're asking a guy to do it in 2 with different voices every year. I find that impossible. I find that impossible. Murray had better passing seasons with less talent than Hurts had around him. And he did it in his first season. I think Kyler Murray is a good player if having good coaching around him. Media said Chiefs weren't going to be good without Tyreek Hill too. Dude, that guy doesn't need anybody because he's got Reed and he's generational talent. He could win in Chicago. He might not win a Super Bowl, but that guy was like LeBron James in his prime. I'm talking Mahomes. That guy could go to the shittiest team on the planet and win. And I disagree with the excuse maker, Joe Schoen up in New York. It's because you have a suck-ass O-line and a suck-ass quarterback doesn't mean somebody like that can't go in and win. Seals continuity, Bird's confidence. Confidence builds consistency. Consistency moves the chains. Move the chains, wins games. Correct. Absolutely. Should have kept Doug. We'd be in better shape. Kevin, that was never going to happen. The front office and all want to have control of how they develop players. They do a horrible job at developing certain positions on your team. Linebackers, defensive side of the ball. That's why they brought Vic in. Hey, I heard something yesterday from Clint Hurt that you're going to love because Clint watches the show when he can and gets an opportunity to. So, Clint, thank you very much. You want to hear this? Under the direction of Vic Fangio, there's going to be certain days that they're going to be longer practices this coming training camp because Vic demanded that they have a little bit more meaningful day practices. There's going to be more meaningful day practices with extended periods of time when it comes to installing the defense. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Okay? Look, Hurts has a second best winning percentage after trailing 10. Dude, Forte, this is not what we're talking. Hey, Brock Purdy, 17-4. 2 NFC championship games in a row. You want to go there? 4,100 passing yards. I could put Purdy ahead of him in every single conversation on what he does from the pocket better than what he does. And with the same type of talent that he has in front of him, he does 10 times more with the talent around him than what Jalen does. Jalen doesn't even utilize his tight end. They barely utilize the running back when it comes to passing game stuff. McCaffrey's a weapon, both passing and running. Hurts does none of that. I don't even remember the last time I saw a check down pass to a running back. The wide receiver 3, you might as well play 10 on 11. I mean, you don't even go to the position. You had 36 total receptions last year. So you barely use your tight end. You don't use wide receiver 3. You don't have any kind of flare patterns or any kind of check downs to your running backs. You throw to 2 dudes. This guy throws to Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, McCaffrey. He goes all around the yard. And he had the third least attempts. And he had the number 3 most passing yards. Talk about efficiency. Watch how Trevor Lawrence, Jackson, Mahomes, Herbert, and even Stroud all had relatively stable coordinators and head coaches compared to Hurts. I think right there, Devontae, thank you for the super chat. Devontae, I think that right there bleeds right into a little bit of what Greg Cosell's saying. Dude, hey, one more time. Thank you, Niner. One more time. Do I think Jalen can develop into being a better progressive reader of defenses in the next 3-4 years? Yeah. If he had the same voice in his ear, yeah. Look, you want to get stability? What's the one way you get stability for Jalen Hurts and for him to become a good pocket passer? James, watch this. You tell me. What would be the best answer to help Hurts develop into a good pocket passer? What would be the one thing? There you go, Kyle. Thank you for answering that, Kyle. Play calling head coach. You need to hire Shane Steichen as your head football coach. Shane Steichen is the right fit for Philly with Jalen as a quarterback, not Nick. And you know it. They let him walk out the building. And with that, Jalen Hurts' progression walked out the building. It's a fact because get this. You know why? You know why that's fact? Look at it. Does Shane Steichen look in any way the way he play called in 22 to have any similarities to what Kellen Moore does? So is Kellen Moore going to be more like Shane? Because the best of Jalen was 22. Well, tell me how that's going to look. So Kellen Moore is going to look more like Shane this year. Is that right? Or is he going to look more like Dak Prescott coordinator? Who's he going to look like? Combination? Why wouldn't you just hire a guy that fits the guy's skill set? Unless you're trying to change him. And the criteria of what a Super Bowl contending quarterback looks like. They are totally changing him. Like Greg Cosell said. And you're not giving him the time to become a progressive when it comes to reading defenses. This is really not on Jalen. Does Jalen have talent? Yes. Look at it. 3,500 plus yards, 800 rushing, 22 plus touchdown passes, 12 plus rushing touchdowns. Obviously, he's gifted. You're coaching him wrong. There's no other way to look at it. That's a talented player. Can he play in this league? That's not a question. How do you get him the max to win? It's not from the pocket. Not yet. 3 years from now, maybe. Maybe. Prince goes, Shanahan directs him on where to go. Okay. How come Jalen doesn't have that? That's right, Prince. At the very end, the Eagles lack that person for Hurts. Yep. There lies the whole conversation in the 2024 season. Is Kellen Moore going to be able to be that guy to help him know where to go with the ball? Because as of right now, as a young player, as any player in this league, Patrick Mahomes, his first couple years in the league, said he had no idea about how to read a defense. Tom Brady said the same thing. But magically, for some of you Eagle fans, you think that doesn't apply to Jalen. It applied to Brady and Mahomes, but not your guy? You got your head up your ass if you think that. And then with the constant revolving door of coaches, how do you develop that? What's happening now is that everyone's now having an epiphany. Hey, the guy's not as good as we thought reading defenses. Can he get better at it? Yeah. Brady says it every single podcast on his show. Can you get better at being a progressive reader of defenses? If you do your homework, you put in the time, yes. If Tom Brady says it, I believe it. If Patrick Mahomes says it, I believe it. But here's the difference. That guy had Dave O'Brien or whatever his name was and Josh McDaniels in New England and a little bit of Charlie Weiss for 25 years. Mahomes has had the same voice in his ear. Jordan Love has a voice in his ear in Matt LaFleur. Hey, do you think there's any coincidence that Brock Purdy is who he is because Kyle Shanahan is in his ear like Prince says? Kyle Shanahan ain't going anywhere. You know why? Kyle Shanahan is instrumental in the development of Brock Purdy. Without Kyle Shanahan in that building, now I know Kyle Shanahan ain't going anywhere. They're not firing Kyle Shanahan. You know why? If I'm going to pay Brock Purdy $60 million coming up, I'm going to make sure he has the best play calling head coach that's out there. Or guess what? The Philadelphia Eagles, my opinion, I would hire Kyle Shanahan in 7 seconds for Jalen Hurts. 7 seconds. What do you need, coach? Kyle Shanahan with the same kind of offensive skill set. And by the way, he tried to make a Jalen Hurts of his own with Trey Lance in San Francisco. Jason, that's right. Remember what you said. It took Montana 6 years. And get this, Joe won Super Bowls still. But it took Joe. Walsh said it. Hey, what did I do? Why Joe rolled right all the time? I wanted him to read half the field. I didn't want him to have to pick up the entire field because Joe wasn't really good at reading defenses right away. I'm talking Joe Montana. I'm talking Joe Montana. JM goes, Shanahan didn't like the RPO. No, he didn't like the RPO the way Trey Lance ran it. You're telling me you wouldn't like the way Jalen Hurts ran it in 22 and you're a head coach? Well, I'm freaking firing you. Montana couldn't read defenses early. So he made him read half the field. And as Joe got better, sitting down with him, Bill Walsh showing him how to read it, pre-snap reads, Montana was unbeatable. Montana is the best thing I've ever seen on a football field. I didn't get a chance to play against Tom, but I've never seen anything like Joe Montana. It's just head movement, moving guys around, accurate as hell, could move, beat legendary quarterbacks in Super Bowls. I mean, and crushed them. The guy's the Michael Jordan of Super Bowls, undefeated, no interceptions in the postseason in Super Bowls. Can you imagine throwing 15 touchdowns and 4 Super Bowl wins and no interceptions? And you beat Elway and Marino and guys like that. And you crushed them with guys like Freddie Solomon. But he had Walsh. Sills aside, Cliff Kingsbury, Cosmo says, who else would have been a good OC for Jalen? Let's take a look at that on the college level. You know who I would like for him? I'm okay with the Texas coach. I'm okay with Steve Sarkisian. Lane Kiffin. Guys who coach that style on a daily basis. You want to get me a guy who coached Dak and change him around. How about a guy who coaches that style? No college coach is allowed. Really? Cliff Kingsbury's one. Cliff Kingsbury's one. The thing about Joe was he always came through in big games. That's why people say he was money. Charlie, the fact that Montana would win those big games had a calm about him. He was never too high, never too low. Jalen has a lot of that personality in him. Doesn't get too high or too low. Montana looked at it as competition. Hey, you win some, you lose some. That's how he looked at it. It didn't kill him. Like Brady's more driven. What did Brady say on his podcast the other day? One of the things that he wished that he could have done was what? He wished that he could have enjoyed himself more. He wished that he could have enjoyed himself more. Look, guys, I don't think this is a poor assessment or Hurts. Does Jalen fit the criteria of winning Super Bowls? No. Are the Eagles trying to change him into that? Yes. Okay, well, if you're doing that, give him time. Jalen Hurts is going to be a bumpy season this year. He's going to be great next year. If Kellen Moore's still his coordinator, that'll be a plus. The Hurts could be on his way. There's no coincidence that Shane Steichen is the only coach that Jalen Hurts has had in the last 4 years that he's had for more than a year and a half. I can't believe people are not plugging that in, that you're stunting this kid's growth by the people around him. And then you make an asshole move by putting a coordinator around him with no experience. How is that helping a $55 million investment? I asked that day one, and you guys are telling me, well, they were boys because they played Tonka toys together when they were kids. I don't want my best friend as my coordinator. I want the best coordinator around me. That's nothing to do with it. The problem isn't about RPOs. It's about not having a single route to the middle of the field and using Smith as a go route player. Victor, do you know how you get the middle of the field open? If you have issues, and again, I get this shit from Bill Walsh. He used to come on the show all the time when we were up at KNBR. Do you understand, you know how you get that open? Slide around in the pocket more. Create passing lanes. Move the defenders. One step right, you move the entire defense. Go back the opposite way. There's a reason why Peyton Manning used to get out there before games and have 3-hour practices every single game before a Sunday ball game. They wanted to play a 3-hour game prior to the 3-hour game. Manning already had an idea where he was going and had a game plan etched in his mind. By the way, Kellen Moore, when I hear people say this is the most obnoxious thing you can hear. When I hear people say Kellen Moore is really going to be an impact on Jalen Hurts, I don't want Kellen Moore to be an impact on Jalen Hurts. I want Jalen Hurts to take more autonomy and more control of his own destiny by having his own game plan that he goes into the games with, where he fundamentally knows that it's his plan. Kellen Moore's not going to win you games. Jalen Hurts is going to win you games. When that dynamic happens, that it's Hurts' offensive plays, it's Hurts' game plan, that's when you're going to win a Super Bowl. Until that time, telling him where to go, hey, I'll agree with somebody who made that comment about Purdy. The difference in that Super Bowl was Kyle Shanahan was telling Brock Purdy where to go with the ball. Hey, Niner all day. The difference in that Super Bowl was Kyle Shanahan telling Brock Purdy where to go with the ball. And Patrick Mahomes knowing where to go with it because of the schooling he got from Andy. And him taking the intel and processing it and saying, yeah, this is what we're going to do. Those are your championship quarterbacks. That's when you know. You actually think Coach Moore was really the offensive coordinator in Indianapolis with Peyton Manning there? Or was it more Peyton Manning and his offensive game plan? He probably laid plays out. They worked the game plan together. What do you like, Peyton? I like this against the Ravens. I like this against the Patriots. We're going to run this. I like these screen passes. We got to get Edgerrin James going. Or we've got to get at the time Marshall Faulk or whomever was running back. We have to get these guys going. I think Dallas Clark could be a real big factor here coming across the seam in the middle. And then Coach Moore would put that together. He had the same coordinator for 10 years in Indy. So wait. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Patrick Mahomes, all have had the same coordinators for 10 years or more. Jalen hasn't had the same coordinator, but for more than a year and a half. And you think you're going to develop that guy into a pocket passer. Never happened. Never happened. Never happened. The control of the front office is stunning his development. And isn't it funny? The same dilemmas that are playing out for Hurts played out for Wentz. Trouble reading blitzes, holding onto the ball too much. You don't see the similarities? You're blind if you do. You don't. I mean, honestly, I'm coming to the epiphany. This is far removed from Jalen. He's a good player. Hurts is a good player. He belongs in this league. He can win. Let him. Get the fuck out of his way. Stop micromanaging this guy. Get the fuck out of his way. They're in the way. They are in the way of developing this guy. It's organizationally, absolutely. Hey, you've won me over. Listening to Greg Cosell, Greg Cosell's criticism wasn't saying that Jalen can't play. You're doing shit to the kid. He has struggles reading defenses. Hey, what an epiphany. A young quarterback in the NFL struggling reading defenses. Wow, I haven't heard that before. The greatest coaches and the greatest quarterbacks all have said it. Montana was like, you think Dan Devine at Notre Dame taught him how to read defenses? They barely started him when he was in college. You think Lloyd Carr developed Tom Brady at Michigan? They barely liked him. He got around great coaches that were stable organizations that they had these same guys for years. There's no coincidence to that. There is no coincidence. That was the era of coaching trees. Now owners are hiring guys you've never heard of. Yeah, and get this, have no disciple, have no fundamental. Didn't Brady say this just recently on one of his podcasts? That the schooling and development of the young quarterbacks in the NFL today seems to be behind. This is what he's talking about with Hurts. This is exactly what he's talking about. You're in the way of Jalen Hurts. Nobody ever ran Walsh's defense. It was his invention. It's not the same. His defense? Walsh is an offensive coach. That's not true. Mike Holmgren was his OC. He ran the West Coast offense in Green Bay. The West Coast offense is what Kyle Shanahan and Mike Shanahan ran in Denver. What are you talking about? The West Coast offense became the Tiffany offense in the National Football League. Nobody ran Bill Walsh's offense. It wasn't West Coast. What the fuck are you talking about? I'm talking about developing an offensive-minded kid. Who in the world is having a conversation on developing a defense? Where are you? Who is talking about a defense? That was drafting. Who is talking about a West Coast? I've never heard of a West Coast defense. They ran a 34. A West Coast defense? Since when is a 34 a West Coast defense? What are you talking about? I mean, you make shit up. There's no such thing. A West Coast defense? What are you talking about? You'll have to show me that one. Okay? James Jones, I don't know. I've never heard of a West Coast defense. It's like new football. I've never heard of it. Totally. Let him run RPO and run the ball. If he gets hurt, he gets hurt. Rather pay Jalen for being? Absolutely. Charlie, they don't want that, though. Because they don't think that criteria is how you do it. What they're doing is they're going with the analytics. The analytics tell them that Hurts' style and Lamar Jackson's style won't win Super Bowls. This is an analytics decision. There it lies. This is an analytics decision. It's an analytics decision to coach him like this. You got professional people who do this shit for a living, too. And by the way, that wasn't my evaluation I read. That was Dan Morgan's of Carolinas, one of the general managers that passes it around. That was evaluation of Jalen Hurts and about 15 other GMs and scouts. That's how they see the kid. The Eagles don't want to go through the criteria. Like I said earlier, football people need to be making the football decisions. That's an analytics decision, man, and what they're doing. They see he doesn't fit the criteria right now, skill set wise. That's why he's holding onto the ball too long. That's why he's taking hits with blitzes. Same as Wentz. The Eagles are coaching him the same way they coach Jalen Hurts. Jalen Wentz, mine will be. Seems to be. Okay. West Coast defense is guessing each other's we can at least West Coast defense. I don't know what that is. You'll have to help me. I've never heard of it. Okay. I've actually never heard of a West Coast defense. West Coast defense. Hey, James Jones, the West Coast defense. Yeah. That's a new one for me. Just turned 44 yesterday. And first I've heard of the West Coast defense. Hey, thank you, Ford. The West Coast defense. That's a new one, too. Me too. Hey, Forrest, we'll agree on that one, right? Oh, and get this. Dre goes, he meant the West Coast offense. So wait, you're trying to tell me that the offensive coordinator, Mike Holmgren, for Bill Walsh and for George Seifert in San Francisco didn't take the West Coast offense up to Green Bay? Andy Reid runs the West Coast offense. He's a product of the West Coast offense. Mike Holmgren, Mike Shanahan, all those guys were under Walsh. Denny Green ran West Coast offense. Nobody ever ran it. I could name you 100 coaches who ran that thing. Sills West Coast defense. Sounds like a strip club. Yeah. Yeah. Holmgren didn't run it before Montana. Montana, dude, Bill Walsh was the OC. When Joe left for Kansas City, Holmgren was elevated to the offensive coordinator in San Francisco. He got the job off the West Coast offense. Bill Walsh developed it actually in Cincinnati when he was the OC, when he was there with Ken Anderson. Holy shit. Read a fucking book. It does, Sills. Yeah. Right? The West Coast defense. So wait, the new, hey, the 34 is the new version of the West Coast defense. All right. Yeah. So explain the West Coast defense, please. Yeah, well, I could easily do that. It's a little bit over here. You have to have a really colorful defensive end with a really good personality. Your nose tackle, he has to be a little bit kind of bullish. And the other end, well, you know what they say about the other end. There's your West Coast defense. 7 linebackers and only 2 guys deep. There's your West Coast defense. Very colorful. Dude, it's no. I'm actually thinking it's funny now. Yeah, senor. Don't get me in trouble, man. Dave wants that 4:30, and really soon we're going to talk to Xander here. Yeah, the West Coast defense. That's a good one, man. Yo, hey, Flexen, you have to have a colorful end. You have to have kind of like a really bully kind of like, nose. And the other end, well, 7 linebackers. And you always have to have 2 guys deep. There's your West Coast defense. Hey, yeah, I'm in. Yay. Let's have a parade. Oh, man. Joe showed how great he was when he went to Kansas City. Yeah, he was the last guy outside of Mahomes to take the Chiefs to the AFC Championship game was Montana. Was Joe Montana. Can you believe that? A 44-year-old Montana was the last guy that took the team to an AFC title game. How you doing? Yeah, the West Coast defense. That's a fucking new one to me, man. How you doing? Wow. Wait, before I bring Xander up here, you don't think that there's any coincidence that the same things that Hurts is struggling from right now, blitzes and holding on to the ball too long, are the same things that ended Carson Wentz's career in Philly? You don't think there's any coincidence to that? No? Anything? Right? Hold on here. Before I get Xander up here, I got to read this. I'm going to read this to Xander here. Let's bring up the co-host. Birds 365 does a great job in the morning with John McMullen.
What's up,